Hello, my name is Chris Carville. Welcome to my podcast, Pedaling Squares Through a Mammal's Life, where we look and talk about endurance sports from a master's aged athlete's perspective. It's February. Soon we will be off our trainers and out into some rainy weather, training and looking forward to racing and riding in May, June, July, August, and thereafter. I don't know about you, but I tend to set some pretty ambitious power and race goals from the comfort of my couch in December and January of every year. But meeting those goals, that's a different story. As we age and get a little bit older, structure in our training becomes paramount. Very few of us can, quote, train into fitness with a spring race series or spring races. For the rest of us, we got to work at it, and we have to do it through structure. And that's where your coach comes in. Training at a master's levels is just different. It's different than racing and training for a young gun. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about training. We're going to talk about structure with a very well-accomplished time trialist, very well-accomplished rider, and even more accomplished coach, Peter Wimberg. So fire up your trainers, fire up your treadmill, and tune in for a conversation with Pete Wimberg. All right. One quick story before we start from one dog guy to another. So COVID hits, and my oldest, who's leaving the house in 3 months, says, you know, Bear, our golden doodle, I never really bonded with him. I want a dog, got nothing to do. It's COVID, right? So this is a perfect time to get a puppy.
Yeah.
So we go out and get another golden doodle. Hey, we bring it home, we take it up to the vet, and vet says, what did you think you bought? I thought about a golden doodle.
That's not a good idea.
Right.
This is not a good comment.
I find out I've purchased a Cavapoo, which is a King Cavalier and a poodle. They look suspiciously like golden doodles. And it turned out we bought it from some mill. When we showed up and they wouldn't let us in to see the dog, and there was a drug transaction where you hand off the dog and take the money.
Yeah.
We knew something was up. Of course, Grace fell in love with the dog by the time we got home, so there was no taking it back. So my question was, did I overpay for a King Cavalier poodle? And the answer is no, I paid market rates for one of those things. But they are the yappiest dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so yappy.
Oh, yeah. There's probably no taking a nap on a Saturday afternoon if somebody comes anywhere near the front door.
Bingo.
Yeah. We've got one like that. We got 3. And the littlest, it's a Jack Russell Maltese mix. And, you know, hey, it's the worst dog we've ever had. I mean, we love the dog. The dog is good with us, but the dog wants to kill everybody it meets and kill every dog it ever meets. And seriously, the thing can be there sound asleep, and this bark comes out of it that just like, you might as well be hit with a taser.
Right. There's no tapping through it.
Yeah. It's just like this. You're just like, no, you know, yeah.
You cannot dial back the endorphins that are coursing.
No. You're done.
Right.
Yeah.
You're instantaneously awake. And it's
half the time the dog attacks me when I come in. You know, it comes running up at the door. It takes it like 2 or 3 minutes to realize, oh wait, you're the guy that gets me the cheese in a minute.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah.
Okay, I'll chill out. It's too late, but I'll chill out.
Yeah.
You want to talk about poor planning? So Grace is now leaving, and then I've got 3 more kids that are going to be coming home at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Perfect for a guy who's trying to get up, go for a century at 5:30 in the morning the next day.
Yeah. The dogs will be waking up at 11:30, 12:30, 1:30. Yeah. Nice.
Things we do for our kids. All
Yeah,
right. Anecdote over. Let's get started. All right. Ready?
sure.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Pedaling Squares, where we talk about all things bicycle and endurance sports from a master athlete's perspective. Today's guest is Pete Wimberg. I'd like to introduce you to Pete. Pete's bio will tell us that he is a USA Cycling Level 1 coach, a USA Triathlon Level 1 coach, certified personal trainer. He's logged over 320,000 lifetime miles. May want to revise that upward because I may have an old bio. He's done over 600 time trials, 50 state championships, and 2 NSG national championships. And what's not on the bio is Pete also runs a multi-million-dollar landscaping company. Pete plays the piano. Pete plays the drums, and he's a huge Jackson Brown fan. Am I right about that?
This is all right. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm up to 350,000 lifetime miles.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I need to update the bio. Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. I got to work this in for alliteration purposes. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter is a polymath.
There you go. Yeah. We're just very confused.
Right.
Still trying to find something I'm good at.
Well, I think you found quite a few. So how early in life does one have to start to log 350,000 lifetime miles?
I started keeping track. I got a bike for high school graduation. Got out of St. X in 1980, and rather than getting a watch like my older brother got, I asked for a bike. So I went up to Beachmont Schwinn and bought a Schwinn World Sport, and I started logging then. I had those Bicycle Magazine at the time. Had those calendar books they put out once a year, and I actually had those until spreadsheets came out on Excel. And I transferred everything over. So I can go back to 1980 and day by day, year by year, look at all the days I rode in the totals.
Do you keep track of weather and wind patterns and what you were wearing?
No, I did not. Just miles. Yeah. I have every time trial noted also on another spreadsheet. So
I started out with, I think it was called the Triathletes Training Almanac. And it was the exact same almanac with just a different athlete on the front of it every year. And then they changed the year on it. And, and I think I started when I had spreadsheets available to me, but there's just something about writing it out handwritten that, I don't know, it stimulates a different part of your brain, or I don't know what it is, but now we don't have to do it at all, right? We just Bluetooth it and then up into the cloud it goes.
Right in. Yeah. I don't have to write it down anymore. Yeah.
I think I keep track of things in 3 different databases. I think I have it in Training Peaks, Garmin, and Strava.
Yeah. Mine's doing the same thing.
And Strava is the gold standard.
Yeah, I mainly pay attention to Training Peaks because there's some stuff I do that's not on Strava.
Yeah.
So and I've only been on Strava for a year. So
you can't update it either. You'd be there all day long and manually updating your.
Oh yeah. I don't care. Yeah. I added to Training Peaks. I added that WKO5, which is like the more in-depth Training Peaks, and it loaded everything I ever put in Training Peaks.
Really?
It took hours. I mean, it went back. I bought one of the first power meters. What was it? The Cyclops with that yellow hub and all wires.
For sure.
Yeah. And it took forever, but it uploaded every ride I had ever done on that thing.
Now, let me ask you, this has nothing to do with you or bike training, but it does have to do with software that we upload into. I've noticed in Strava, maybe I'm all alone, that it doesn't do a very good job of upgrading your FTP. Like you have to manually change it in the database.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't show progression over time. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong about that. Does Training Peaks do that for you, where it tells you your FTP was this and calendar year that? And
yeah, Training Peaks will keep track of that. Honestly, the only Strava, other than the fun of going after the KOMs and all that, I always find on it, my power, like the average for the ride is much lower. Now, maybe it's calculating coasting time too.
I think it is.
Yeah. It doesn't know to take that out. So
yeah.
I'm definitely more of a Training Peaks in that regard to keep. And Training Peaks, I think, does a pretty accurate, assessment of your FTP.
Yeah, I think I'll get some hate for this, but I look at Strava as like Facebook for cyclists. where everybody can pat you on the back and you can post your pictures, and it's more
Yeah.
communal, where Training Peaks is like, if you're going to train, this is the gold standard of software.
Yeah. I've almost purposefully on Strava, and I'm not, if anybody wants to follow me, I'm not turning them down, but I don't go after following people.
Yeah.
Um, if I have whatever 2,000 LinkedIn connections and 1,500 Facebook connections, I have 40 Strava connections, and that's fine.
That's because you're nabbing all their KOMs. They don't want to know you.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, those people always follow you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because they're getting emails that saying, "Uh-oh."
Yeah. Yeah. You've been dethroned.
Right. Pete's back in Tennessee.
Yeah. I actually have a few guys in Michigan that follow me because of that.
Yeah.
The week in Glen Arbor last year, I picked up 8 or 9 of them or 10 of them or something up there, and all of a sudden you got friends from Glen Arbor and Traverse.
All of a sudden,
yeah. I don't know who these guys are, but yeah.
I was bragging to my kids. So this is way too much personal information for this interview, but we were down in Florida because my parents' 50th anniversary, we were supposed to be up in Alaska, and then COVID hit. So we went down there to celebrate their 50th. And I went around nabbing a handful of KOMs, and I started bragging to my nephew about it. My oldest, Adam, said to my nephew, Ben, he said, "Yeah, Ben, my dad's the king of the old people."
Yeah.
So I was down there nabbing KOMs in a retirement community.
Yeah.
That put it in perspective.
You can brag about just those age category,
That's true
too.
That's true.
Yeah. So when you lose one, you go back and look, well, at least I'm still the king of the 55 to 64
right. bracket. I'll give that guy a 20-year handicap. See where he is in 2 decades.
Yeah. So, I like to. I got a couple notes today from my ride down here that I lost the what is it? Not the KOM. It's the
local legend.
The local legend. Yeah. Of course, my first thought is, well, shit, I'll just ride up that hill 8 or 9 times and crush that guy. Yeah. It doesn't have to be fast. I'll just do it a lot.
Right.
I don't care.
I can be stubborn and ride this more times than you can.
Yeah. Well, the thing, I didn't even know I had the local legend until I lost it. Now I'm like, I don't really care. Yeah. I was just like, okay. Yeah. There's only so many things you can go after.
That's right. That's kind of a booby prize. It's just rewarding guys that are out there.
Yeah. And you know what? And if that's your motivation, I'm going to ride that hill or that course more than anybody. I say go for it.
I surrender.
Yeah. It's all good. Go ahead. Yeah.
So how did you discover that time trialing was your thing? And let's get back to that first bike, by the way. It had to be steel.
It's steel. And actually the bike I rode today is steel.
So steel is real. You're still riding.
I still have 3 steel bikes, 2 Tomasinis, and my custom built Franklin, which was modeled off of one of the Tomasinis.
Okay.
I've got carbon fiber bikes, I've got I still have an aluminum Serrata. I'm about to buy a titanium bike, but I like steel. I really do. I like how it feels.
It's got a totally different feel. They cannot duplicate it with plastic.
Yeah. And I actually think on long rides, it's more comfortable for me.
Oh, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. I just think, and I do, 25 centuries a year probably. And the long rides, I just think it's way more forgiving on you.
Yeah.
And the added weight, I honestly, I had that steel bike here, I don't know, 2 or 3 trips ago. So probably early March, rode up to Klingman's Dome. And Grant, since I've been on Strava and it's tracking it, I've probably done that ride 10 times, let's say in the last year. And I didn't even try. It was hands down my fastest ride.
On
the steel. It was the first time I'd taken the steel bike out. And I was, actually my power was a little bit better. It didn't, not too much higher, but it didn't feel higher. And maybe it's just training. I was a little bit more in shape, but I was kind of surprised. I got to the top like 4 or 5 minutes faster than what I did last fall.
I think the weight penalty is probably a water bottle.
And it could be. Yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
I think it's the aesthetics. I think there's an entire generation of cyclists. Now, this is real old guy talk right now.
Yeah.
There's an entire generation of cyclists that like the idea of a skinny tube bike. It's just aesthetically unpleasing to them. They need those big bulbous, fat bottom brackets. It's just what they grew up with.
Yeah. To me, the steel bikes though with the lugs. I mean, when I had my Franklin built, I purposefully had the guy do chrome lugs,
Yeah.
that are all cut and pointed. Um,
Yep.
and that bike gets more attention when I ride it, or if I take it to a shop. So, if I'm out of town, need something,
Yeah.
everybody loves to look at it. And everybody who rides it from the shops all say that bike rides sweet.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I was, looking back, it was the Schwinn's, and then I ended up, I bought a Trek from Andy over at Oakley Cycles,
Yep.
and it was in Oakley on that little side.
When it was actually Oakley
Which
Cyclers.
actually was Oakley.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've had, I don't know, Colnagos. I've had Serratas, still have a Serrata. I lined it up one time. I've had Quotas. Uh, I think I've had 20 different brands of bikes, and I still have 8 in the garage, I think.
What's the saying? The number of bikes you need is N+1.
1+1. Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of at a limit because I can't hang any more than that in the garage. So
Yeah, you've run out of shelf space.
yeah. Like I said, I'm looking at a titanium. I just think it'd be kind of the cool mix of
Well, I can tell you, I think it is.
Steel and carbon, kind of both of the benefits.
Yeah, I got 2 Indy Fabs. I've got a stainless steel Indy Fab, and then I've got I have a titanium Indy Fab, and they do feel a little bit different. Like the steel is still a little more plush, but the tie is that middle ground, and it's just a wee bit lighter, so you don't feel as guilty about it when you're trying to go after KOMs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from the aesthetics of it, it's I think there's going to be an age of athlete. It's just that look of bike is going to totally age out.
Yeah.
Except for the kids downtown that are riding around in Argyle socks and they love the look of the steel fixies.
Yeah. But actually, if you still go on like Tomasini or Colnago's site and look, they still make, or at least Tomasini is making steel frames still.
Yeah.
And the paint job is just fantastic.
And I bet you it looks exactly the same, other than the rake or the fork. I bet you it's almost the exact same.
Oh, it is. Yeah. But they still do that really slick, paint job on it. They'll do the fades. They do the sparkles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a good looking bike. And it's probably like cars. It's why, a 1972, Corvette is just a good looking car. Is it the most efficient vehicle out there? No, but it's a good looking car.
It looks good.
Yeah.
So we've detoured dramatically here. I even got page 1 of my notes. So getting back on task here, how did you discover that time trialing was your thing?
Early on, so this was probably like 1984, I think, somewhere 84, 85. I was doing alt park, believe it or not, in a t-shirt, and I had no idea what was going on. I remember just kind of going off the front and thinking, well, nobody's chasing me. This is great. Then they all chase me later.
Right.
And no strategy. So it was somewhere around 1986, because that's when I got married. My wife came up and watched a few of the alt park races. And basically she said to me, you can keep doing this, but I'll never come watch this again. There were several wrecks that night.
Yeah.
And it didn't bother me. I mean, I wasn't, that wasn't an issue for me. It was an issue she didn't like me doing. And I'm not saying, actually, I will say, she kind of directed me away from it, which is probably the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
So I remember talking to Kathy Crumey, going into Oakley and whatever. And we're talking about alt park, and I was never going to be, I don't know if I would have been any good at it or not. I don't think I have a sprint really. And she told me about Cleves, and so I went out there. I kind of got lost the first night. So I showed up, barely found the start right beforehand. So I warmed up for like 5 minutes. And my first time was like 26 and change. And I immediately thought, well, I know I can do better than that.
Yeah.
Just by getting there on time.
Right. Not being freaked out.
Yeah. Like, where am I going? I didn't even know the course.
Yeah.
So, by the end of the first year, I'd gone from 26 to 23 something.
Holy cow. In 1 year.
50 something, maybe. Yeah. In the first year. And some of that was buying equipment. I was riding a Cannondale. I mean, remember the blue Cannondale with the yellow letters?
Mm-hmm.
And I slapped some, Scott bars on that.
Good old fashioned handlebar aero bar.
Yeah. And then I took the seat post out and I put in one of those angled seat posts.
I
That
remember those.
moves
Yeah.
forward.
Profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Move you forward. Bought a Troxel helmet that looked like the golf ball,
Yeah.
with the divots in it, or the dimples in it. So yeah, I mean, I think that event, for my personality, I didn't know anybody there. I mean, going back in time, I think of the guys there, none of them are doing it now. I mean, that was 20 something years ago. But I think it just fit me that, okay, this is something you can do. I didn't really care what anybody else was doing.
Yeah.
I looked at it, can I get faster at this? And I just became kind of, well, not kind of, I became obsessed with it, and like I said, I think, I mean, I
Says the
didn't,
guy with decades worth of spreadsheets.
yeah. But, and oddly enough, I live a mile from Alt Park, so every Tuesday night I drove 26 miles or something
I
to do
know.
Cleves, when Alt Park's right up the street, but that's okay. I mean, it opened up a whole, you know, level of racing for me that, like I said, I was probably never gonna get there in the critter road race world. And
Yeah.
I enjoy the equipment part of it, and I enjoy the training of it too.
And there's some objectivity to it too, and objective in the sense that here's what I can do today, and I'm going to work and then do better tomorrow.
Right.
Measure that objectively.
Right. There's no, hey, I got stuck behind a wreck, or a couple guys, boxed me into the curb,
Right.
the curb or something.
Right. Or I got sandbagged by some cat too that was trying to make his buddy get out in the front and
Yeah. It's
away.
really just who, within certain limitations, who can put out the most power. I mean, at some point you can say who's spending the money, but it's not, it isn't. I mean, the money, and we can talk about that, but you can buy the most expensive frame in the world, and a frame off, the shelf is going to be almost as fast.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times we see people showing up at Cleves and you're thrilled for them. They bought the brand new bike and they think, their first ride, there's just going to be
PR town.
Yeah. And it's not,
I know.
Yeah. So yeah, it's about position and power, and how you can, how miserable can you be in your position and put out the power, or do you want to err on the side of more power with less of the aerodynamic position?
And we're going to talk about that kind of trade-off between power and fit. And that's a trick, right? I'm going to talk to Mitch in an interview coming up about Mitch at BioWheels and Retool about, he's never told me this, but I have got to believe that a TT fit has to be the most complicated fit of any cyclist.
I only laugh because I mess with my fit constantly.
Yeah.
All right. So in between races in December in Florida, between my 5 and 10K at the Florida State Championships, I radically changed my saddle height, which was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
It was the first 10K on a state level I've never won, out of like 50 state events or something. And I totally screwed it up. It didn't
go high or low. And what were
I went too high. I won the 5K bracket and overall.
And that wasn't good enough. So you had to mess with your satellite.
Yeah. I don't know why I messed. I didn't feel right. I remember one night at Cleves, I was adjusting my saddle height at the start line. Okay. While I'm in line, I brought a tool with me. And Sam Lowe, who was out there a lot at that time, he looked at me and goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm raising my saddle," or whatever. He goes, "I can't believe you would touch it now." He goes,
"I can't either."
He goes, "I have everything down to like the millimeter." And it's funny because I've read like, some of the pro riders, like it might have been Levi Leipheimer or somebody who would do that. He'd have him change it in the middle of a race. They'd literally ride up next to him in the car, and he'd adjust his saddle up or down because it didn't feel right.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said for knowing too. There's an intuitive sense that, okay, something's not quite right.
Right. Yeah. And for me, I know for a fact 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I was getting more power in a more up higher and more forward position. really as far forward as USA, cycling
let you.
UCI, right on that level, of, being legal. You had to be 5 centimeters behind the bottom bracket. So I was at 5. And I was even then riding off the tip of the saddle. So I was dangling over the bottom bracket and really hunched over the bars. And that worked for me. It's more of a quad, not you're not using your glutes and your hamstrings, but it's more of a quad thing.
Yeah.
That far forward. And I found now that I spend so much time training in another position, just more of a road position, which is still a little bit more forward than most road positions. Not quite as high as I used to do on my time trial bike. So I've kind of settled things back down. It's my position's now not too much different than my road bike, just a little forward, a little bit lower. So I'm definitely engaging more glutes and hamstrings.
Well, you've just jumped to like page 3 on my outline, but
that's okay. Yeah,
let's go there, because people have got to wonder, right? Why, when I do my FTP test, why are my numbers always higher on my road bike than on my time trialing bike? Why is that, Coach?
I know. Yeah. Because you're sitting more upright, more back in the saddle, and you're engaging more muscles. You're truly engaging more of your glutes and your hamstrings in addition to your quads. Whereas on your time trial bike, first of all, hunched over on your time trial bike, you're immediately changing. You're taking really everything from here almost out of the equation.
Right.
So when I ride my basement, if I'm doing my field test for my coach, man, I'm sitting up.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I'm like what would be up on the brake hoods.
That's what I do for my coach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And and that's how you put out the power. Did you do the indoor time trials?
No, up in Dayton.
Paul Rouse does he did that. He didn't do it the last winter because of COVID and all that. But so you took your bike up to the Y up in it used to be up near like Bellbrook, and now it was at the Y up there in Lebanon, that huge Y up there.
Yeah.
So everybody's, he did 8 people at a time on CompuTrainers, okay, over a 10K course. Everybody's sitting up.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, because when I'm pushing back, and I'm just like leveraging those pedals.
Yeah.
So you're gonna just get more power that way. I think even we sit upright to get bigger breaths like that.
Mm-hmm.
But your time trial position, as soon as we do this, you're crunching your chest and everything about it. Get your head dug in the turtle thing and all that. That is all costing you power. Not that people can't get good power on their time trial bikes. I think as we get older, it gets harder and harder to do that.
Yeah.
In that position, at least. So I've had to relax my time trial position. In other words, I brought the saddle back just slightly down a little bit and brought my bars up just a little bit in the front.
Yeah, I haven't messed. This interview is not about me, but to illustrate your point,
Yeah.
I haven't messed with my TT fit in probably 3, maybe 2.5 or 3 years. And I don't know if it's because I'm too cheap and I don't want to go back and spend $350 on a new bike fit, or it's about right. But I kind of had to go through an evolution where like I had to be okay with my power numbers not matching my training numbers. Right. And then it was, well, okay, I'm going to experiment a little bit and I'm going to get the cadence up and I'm going to try to ride a high cadence TT. And the irony is that I was almost, but not quite, almost as fast as if I, like let's say I was doing 290 and just cranking it out at 85 watts, all crunched up. If I dropped it down to 275 and spun it at 90, I might only be 10 seconds or 30 seconds slower, but I'd feel a hell of a lot fresher. Not that you ever feel fresh, but not totally gassed at the end of it. And then it gets that like real fine line between, do I go the high cadence thing or dig for the power?
Yeah, even on the cadence. So I know I used to do cleaves at 100 to 105. Okay.
Like Lance Armstrong RPMs.
Yeah. Now I'm more 90 to 95.
Yeah.
I just cannot. I think what I found too is I could drive my heart rate a lot higher and hold that higher percentage of the max. And therefore that's where that high cadence came from, I think.
Yeah.
Big power and big cadence, and if my max heart rate was 185, I mean, I was pushing 97, 98% of that, once I got going on that course. And whether it's mental, and I think some of it is. I think some of it is I've been there and know that pain. And I know I can ride not quite there and still do pretty well. Now, if I know it's an A race, state championship or something, then I'm gonna push that up like that, up into that upper range on the heart rate.
Oh, for sure you are, because it's on your calendar and circled in red.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas Cleves has been interesting in that, the massive data I have on that and what I've done, but having done it so much, it's just become, I'm not as excited about it as I used to.
Right. It's almost scientific. It's like, what am I going to experiment with today?
Yeah. I mean, it used to be my A race every Tuesday night.
Yeah.
15 years ago, 10 years ago, even when I was faster.
That's because you were winning it. That's why it was your A race.
It was more fun.
Winning is always more fun.
Yeah. I can't win. I'm not going anymore.
Right. Why I don't golf?
Once those young guys showed up, I'm out.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I do think, and I think you have to be comfortable with that decision, kind of that, hey, I've done that one a lot. And I used to feel like I had to go every week, and now I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the training end, I use it for that, though, that if I go out, and there have been nights I just look at power. No, my coach wants me to hold it in a certain spot. So it is really just a training event.
It's like an FTP test. Almost.
Yeah. Which is supposed to be a training event, isn't it?
Yeah.
And for me, that's okay now, that I can go out and do that. And, like the one interesting thing is too, we did these indoor races this winter that Andy Jones set up on Ruvi.
Yep.
So it was Sunday morning. You could do it in two different orders, but we started with a Galbraith road climb off the bike trail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's 1.8 miles.
Right.
We started right at the bike trail and went all the way to the top. And then we did Heacon Avenue from...
Those are two different profiles.
Yeah, from Eastern Avenue up to Alt Park. And then you could either do Cleves before that. I always did Cleves first, or you can do Cleves after it, okay? So I did Cleves first when he lined these things up. I held my best power inside, and it's the real Cleves course, without wind, of course.
Yeah.
But it was the best power held over that course in probably 5 or 6 or 7 years, riding inside.
You think some of that was sitting up, and
I could sit up, right? Yeah. So totally different. It's kind of the same conversation, FTP inside versus FTP outside.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, no, I kind of draw the line on that and say, I want to deal with just one FTP and not really, I don't have two sets of training zones for me or anything.
Yeah.
I'd say just do it. I actually,
I've got a buddy right now that I'm training with that has been doing all his FTPs inside, right? And he's a big fella.
Yeah.
And he's telling me what his numbers are. And I know they are 20 beats low for having ridden with him for years.
Yeah.
And he's got a coach. And I told him, hey, you need to go outside because you're going to instantly add 10% to that number. He's like, nah, I'm staying inside. And he's doing it he's not even doing it on a smart trainer. So he's doing it on resistance. So it's killing him. Right. Yeah, but he's like, this is what the coach wants to do. I've got it done. I'm measuring my fitness against this type of test. I'm staying there.
Yeah.
Have at it. My ego couldn't handle it.
Yeah. It's funny because some efforts I'm better outside and some I'm not. I actually do better on like the 30-second and 1 minute, 2 and 3 minute.
Yeah, I get that.
Because I can work the bike more. Even in time trial position, I feel like the bike can move back and forth.
Yeah.
Now, my problem is, believe it or not, 20-minute efforts, I'd almost rather do them inside. As boring as they are. As boring as they are, I feel like I settle into them, even on a Ruvi course, something with some variation in the terrain. Outside, if I need to ride, down here in Tennessee, okay, which is where I'm sitting.
Well, you're not going to find a flat 20 minutes portion of road.
There's a climb 15 minutes from our house. Okay. It's actually right as you get into, you leave Gatlinburg and right into Smoky Mountain National Park.
Yeah.
Right
So it's all uphill for 20
It's
minutes.
all uphill. The first couple of miles are gradual.
Yeah, I know what you're
Go
talking
past
about.
Sugar Land and I head up
Yep.
to Elkmont.
Yep.
It's actually about 23 minutes from the park entrance. And I hold great power on that climb.
There is
It's
something to having a gradual incline that helps you hold power.
Yeah. Well, it just does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, like if you use 52 at home, you get a big wind behind you.
Yeah.
And things just fall apart. I mean,
Totally.
Yeah, unless you really. Time trial's got a 54 on it, but I'm not really trained with a 54.11 on my road bike. And you can get to the point you're like cruising along 27, 28, and there's like not the power's okay, but it's not what you wanted. So you have to almost turn around and go back into the wind.
To make it work.
Yeah. My coach one time, she gave me a 90-minute tempo effort, which I remember I started it right by River Downs. I think I ended up somewhere like way past Felicity when I was,
right, because you were holding 27.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, every time I hit like a light, I'm just like, okay, balance. All right. And then go,
Yeah.
And I'm like watching the average for an hour and a half. I remember I said to her, let's not do that again. It was like mentally draining.
Yeah. I don't have the mental constitution.
Yeah. It wasn't that much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I totally get that. Well, we're talking all about TT here. So, and you're a coach.
Yep.
So 2 points. One, the beauty of being a middle-aged athlete is you probably have another job, because if you were a professional athlete, you've peaked and you've done something else with your life as a cyclist, right?
Right.
So if you want to be a sprinter, you can train to be a sprinter. If you want to be a climber, you can train to be a climber. If you want to be a long distance, 2-day, 1-day super gravel event guy or gal, you can do that. If you want to kill yourself on a TT course, you can do that too. That's the beauty of kind of picking your discipline. It's not dictated by what you're good at. But having said that, will you sit down with your athletes and say, here's, that kind of Hunter Allen profile that you chart out and say, here's where you're strong, here's where you're not as strong. Maybe we need to be focusing more on this kind of racing versus that kind of racing, or do you let your athletes come to you and say, so I want to be good at, make me good at it?
I think it's kind of a combination. All right. If I have someone who we think we cannot train into, like, say, a good sprint. All right. And let's say, yeah. So what kind of sprint do they need? And what, if they're middle-aged, let's say, and I've got data from other people that are good sprinters who are in their 40s and 50s, and it's still up there. Can we train that person up to that? Okay. If we can't, then I think you say, what can we do with what you have? You may be the one in the crits and the road races. You're fighting
rider
position. Yeah. That you need to be in the right spot to be there for the sprint. It could be that, if they're, watts per kilogram is high, but it's not that, sprint, power, that maybe they're the climber. So maybe in the road races, the spring series or whatever, they take advantage of the climbs that they can put other people away. I think the great thing is, at least if you're racing age, okay, I think for the most part, you're going to get some ringers in there. You're going to have your Cat 1s, been Cat 1 since they were 20.
Right.
They're now 50 and they're still good.
Right.
Okay?
Can't let go.
If they're still racing, they probably haven't stopped training.
Right.
And you got to just kind of say, okay, you're probably not going to beat everybody. But what can we find, in your skill set, knowing you're going to race against, the age.
Yeah.
And everybody's kind of fallen back at some point. Most of the stats show when you're 60, you can train as much as you want, and you're probably not going to keep getting faster. And maybe some of those former Cat 1s do just kind of back off a little bit, and you have the opportunity to kind of ramp up your training, because maybe you're new to it and you didn't train all those years. You think about pro athletes, 10 years maybe. Football players don't last 10.
No,
baseball players, how long? Let's face it, baseball isn't that hard.
Yeah.
The travel would stink. But
right.
what we're doing, we're talking I've been riding since 1980, I'll be 59 this year. I mean, we're talking 40 years of riding, and putting a lot of time in. That's a big, big commitment. So,
Very marginal return.
yeah, well, there's a lot of good things.
Right.
But every once in a while I see somebody come into the sport late and they have the skill. Maybe they're a runner or swimmer,
Yeah.
and they might be able to, and they kind of get that newness to it. And they kind of say, I'm going to go after this because I'm new. I know some women right now that just got into it later, are riding really well in their age bracket. No, I had a Cat 1 local guy say to me several years ago, when I can't compete against everybody in the bracket, all the Cat 1s, he goes, I won't do it anymore. And he hasn't been racing now, and I haven't seen him in years.
Yeah.
He just, and I said to him at the time, I said, I don't feel that way. I don't, I wouldn't want to give up for that. I mean, why not just go after the people your age and have fun with that?
Yeah.
It's
or
kind of
set
the
goals
whole,
for yourself. Just say, here's what I did on Monday. I'm going to do better on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the fact is, the people that are like 55, 60 and older that are still riding as fast as the 20 and 30 somethings, and we know they're out there.
Yeah.
Those are anomalies. I mean, that's like really just kind of crazy. I've always said that's kind of like if you had a 55-year-old guy who was like, coming in the top 20 at the New York Marathon. I mean, look down the list. You don't see
that very often.
But we have, there are cyclists out there that are, you check the national championship. There's some guys out there that are older and, and actually even you look at the senior games, the swimmers. I went down the list one time for like the 50-meter freestyle for the men, 50, 55, 60, and 65. If you took those winning times, I was over at Xavier doing some training with their triathlon team. I looked up at the school records and the Big East records.
Yeah.
Those guys would all be in the top 20. Top 20 all time at Xavier.
They would be getting like offered 60. College scholarships.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe that says something about that sport. Well, you can't play football when you're 60. I mean, at some point it's beat up. Swimming is a little bit easier on your body. And this, I mean, you look at
and there's a lot of precision movements in swimming.
Yeah. And I think, those guys, they have that down. I mean, it's like playing the piano.
Right.
They don't forget, old people can play the piano great.
Right.
Better. Yeah. I mean, even in running, I checked. I mean, there's guys, national senior games doing the 5-kilometer event running. I mean, they're doing like 6-minute miles and stuff.
It's impressive.
Yeah. 5
at that age.
Yeah.
Well, kind of at any age, but really impressive at that age.
Yeah. So that's, I remember the first time I went to nationals, I mean, it was like right after I'd done Cleves for a year or two. And I remember I was in my 30s. I'm looking at these old guys. I mean, I was like, this is the fountain of youth right here.
Yeah. There's
guys 70 were like crushing it, Yeah.
And not so much in the running side of things, not to malign runners, but I mean, I had to get away from running. The toll it was taking on my body. So, you look at kind of cycling as that middle ground between swimming and running, where you can, it does have a fountain of youth aspect to it. Yeah. So we already know that, FTP and performance is going to maybe hit a ceiling. I don't want to say drop off. Let's just call it a ceiling for aspirational purposes, in your 60s. The first thing somebody does when they go out and buy a power meter is they go out and do an FTP test. They go to the Hunter Allen charts, they figure out where they rank, and then they go to work and brag about it around the water cooler because nobody knows what they're talking about. It all sounds very impressive, right?
Yeah.
So I was kind of thinking about FTP going into this interview, and it is a very difficult concept to describe to a non-cyclist, even as like a serious non-cyclist, but like just somebody that's never touched a bike. Like, what's a watt? And why do you measure it in kilograms? Why do you have to be all Euro about it? And why does that ratio, why is that important? Why should I be impressed? And I can't remember if it was a Trainer Road or some other podcast I was listening to, and it was a coach, and he was trying to kind of set the table for a discussion about it. And he was putting forth that if you have a 4.0 watts to kilogram ratio at FTP, that's kind of the equivalent of running a 3-hour marathon. Now,
Okay.
it's about apples and oranges, but do you think that equates in your experience if you want to kind of communicate to the outside world what your watts are, or your FTP in a ratio?
Yeah.
And say,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
a 4 is about a 3-hour. You can run a 3-hour marathon. It doesn't mean you can run a 3-hour marathon, but for the sport,
But you should.
yeah.
You should. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that a fair
I was just
ratio?
yeah. I mean, I've always said the problem with running is everything's based on a marathon, which to me is just too long an event for most people to comprehend.
It hurts, period.
It's too hard to train for.
Yeah.
Yeah. For our sake, I think it'd be, yeah. I mean, that's the easiest thing to relate it to because people know about half marathons and full marathons,
Right.
and kind of the bellwether times,
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So for the sake of that, yeah.
Yeah. That works for you.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
FTP. I mean, I mean, I check it and I check everybody's. It is that big number everybody thinks about, but I also think at times is what is my event and what do I really care about?
Right.
And maybe going after that's increasing my FTP. I don't obsess over my FTP, it's there. I'm really looking at, these kind of metrics that I know I'm going after, like what is my 5-minute power,
right?
10-minute, 20-minute, and how am I training those? I think they're more relatable numbers because let me ask you, okay, and I did this for my kids. I swear, I think sometimes she told me this actually. She goes, I send you things because I know you'll do it and I want to see how it works. Then I let other people, because we didn't do it this past one, but one before, like for a month, one day a week, warm up 20 minutes and give me your best hour in your basement. And I rode my FTP. Actually, I wrote
staring at a wall.
Yeah. I listened to music, but I remember thinking, and I knew, I mean, here's then it became a game. Like by the 4th or 5th time she did this to me, I knew how to like pace myself for the first 20, start to pick it up to about 30 minutes, another pickup to 40 minutes. And then that last 20, I kind of and I made it a game, like that last 5 minutes, and I was maybe sandbagging then a little to ride higher than my FTP. And I think she was kind of just studying, like, I told somebody ride there because it's calculated.
An hour, it's a metered effort. There's no other way to look at.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's Training Peaks is looking at all your efforts and kind of saying, because you're not going out and riding that hour really, unless you're in a race maybe, right, or a time trial.
Or it matters.
And so it's kind of looking at everything else you do and rampant, and coming up with that number for you. And it's kind of like, in our world of time trialing, I like to give you guys the 8-minute field test, 2 8-minute efforts as opposed to the 120.
Yeah, let's pause there and tell me what you're thinking on the CTS versus a 20-minute.
I think people get a better number from the 8-minute because it's not as daunting.
Yeah.
I think we get a truer number. 20-minute, because usually it's in the basement. I prefer the repeatable course. And ideally in the basement, it's always the same,
right?
To find an outdoor course and given the time of the year, it just can be tough.
Yeah.
There's 8 minutes. I like the data I get from it better. Like I said, I think it's a more.
I think that's because people they don't have to, they can suffer for 8 minutes, recuperate and say, okay, I only have another 8 minutes versus that. Like you're 12 minutes in and you're like, oh God.
Oh my God.
Time is slowing down.
Yeah. 8 minutes is 2 good songs.
Right.
Yeah.
A couple back-and-back AC/DC tunes.
And oddly enough, because we did this also, comparing the 8-minute to a 20-minute effort, because she made me do this. My numbers, basically, the zones were the same.
Yeah.
But looking at the calendar, I'd rather see the 8-minute efforts.
I find that I'm just a little bit higher on the 20 minutes.
That could be. Yeah.
And I think part of that is just like leaving it all out there. Like you hit that spot at the 12-minute mark and you're like, well, are you a man or not? You're going to finish this versus the 8-minute where there's a tiny little bit of sandbagging in there, and you don't necessarily have to have that conversation with yourself because you're going to get to rest in 3 minutes.
Yeah. And actually the indoor cleaves that we did, let me check here on my calculator real quick, because I wrote it really hard, and I kind of thought that those numbers, it came out almost dead on my FTP.
Yeah.
That was like 23 or 24 minutes. I held that. And when you run that through, that indoor cleaves, we hit competition, people from Italy and whatever, it forced me to kind of ride. If you use that number.
Yeah, you'll find the extra 4 minutes when Giuseppe is coming up nipping at.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But so I know this. When I got up on those Sundays and I had those 3 events on there, I was like as nervous as I would be, riled up as like if I had a state championship race.
Yeah.
I mean,
you get jacked.
People, but you're going in your basement, like,
all by yourself.
Yeah.
But other people are there.
Yeah. Wife or somebody's coming down with the laundry, dogs are walking by, and I'm just sitting there like dying in the basement with the fan on. And
right.
Yeah. So, but I was going to say too, that I think, and this can bump up our FTPs, especially time trials, because we are doing so much in that
zone,
time zone, time frame, that we become good at it.
I think we train to the test.
We do. Yeah. And our FTP is probably that high too. But I just think you could get to a point where what you're doing in your training is pushing your FTP up, where it may be really hard to hold that for an hour.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of like saying to a swimmer that's really good at the 500 meter free, and based on that, well, you should be able to swim for an hour this far. And the guy's like, I never.
This is what I do.
Nor do I want to. Okay.
Right. Some other guys got
that 1500 meter thing or whatever they do. Yeah. Where everybody leaves the arena and comes back. When we're close to done.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think about that 20-minute effort, and I like it because if you're in a road race or any race that's sub 3 hours, there's going to be a selection point that you need that 20-minute effort for, right?
Sure. Oh yeah.
And there's going to be a 5-minute effort up a hill. Okay. Right. And you train in those 2 places, then you just pace yourself throughout the race, and there's going to be a selection point, and then you go deep. Nobody goes into the hurt locker for an hour in a road race unless they got dropped and they're trying to catch a group. So you know what I mean? So it's that 1 hour mark, it has mystique among endurance athletes or cyclists in particular, but it's something hardly anybody races at.
That's right. Yeah. You're not going to do it probably. It would you'd kind of be done if you did.
Yeah.
Kind of race over if you were to do that.
Yeah. And who wants to train that hard? Like it's hard enough to train for a 20-minute race or a 5K or 10K.
Yeah. You look at the hour record on the track.
That's the best analogy.
Just the mental, the mental, just drain that would take, just to, and honestly, when they do it, you're not allowed to use a computer.
I didn't know that.
No.
They just yell off your splits.
No data. You just ride by feel. And I think they're allowed to yell your splits.
So you don't even know what power numbers are.
Yeah. They're just riding. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. If you watch that movie, The Flying Scotsman. Great movie. I mean, seriously, what that guy went through, 2 days in a row there, where he failed the first day, and they're like all joyous, good, you failed,
Right.
I'm coming back tomorrow.
I'm surprised. Who does that? Like, if I crap the bed on an effort, it's like I don't go back the next day and try redoing it. It's like, I'll just rest for 2 days and then I'll go out and
I'm not even sure if I want to go back to cleaves the next day.
Right.
You're like, I kind of laid it all out there. I think I'm done.
Right.
Whereas that guy got Yeah, the hour. I mean, that's a tough one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
deep, deep, deep in the hurt locker.
yeah, yeah. I think too. FTP. Looking at that, I think cyclists need to look at their VO2 and be as concerned with that, because I know the easiest way to work on the VO2 is just lose some weight.
Amen to that. And you just anticipated my next question, but let's dwell a little bit on VO2. So, as a coach, because I've been thinking a lot about this lately, like, training to the 8-minute efforts for the CTS test, or training
Yep.
to the 20-minute. I mean, I know that's what I've done. I've never, ever sat down and done, or sat down, we didn't sit down. I've never done a VO2 test. I've done plenty of the, where they poke you and you do the moles and you figure out where your lactate threshold is that way. What's the argument for going and getting your VO2 done as opposed to the FTP, or what dimension does that bring to an athlete's kind of, what do you want to call it, is the landscape of measurements out there?
Right. So my VO2 stories, Will Peveler, a guy used to be over at Northern Kentucky University in their exercise phys department, called me up. That was probably, 10 years, 12 years ago. And he did the VO2, and I'd never done one. So you go over, and I just remember he strapped that mask on my face and pulled it tight. And my first thought was,
where's my air coming from?
Well, yeah, I thought, I didn't know I was claustrophobic till right now. I'm like, I really, you and I, well, I know Barbara Walker, Barbara.
Yeah.
And I worked with her on, focus, at events, controlling heart rate and breathing. And I put everything that she taught me to use in
about a nanosecond.
Yeah. I'm just like, I almost looked at him and said, dude, I can't do this. Yeah. But anyway, he strapped it on, then he put his hands on the sides and said, can you breathe? And I said, no. And he goes, you shouldn't be able to. Now, he put the hoses on. I was like, dude,
could have warned me.
Yeah. And that was the test. And it didn't, I know some of those LT tests take a long time. You just kind of keep going,
ramping up.
So this thing, we warmed up for maybe 20, probably 30 minutes. And it was over, I can't remember, but it was under 15 minutes. Because I remember he said to me, he kept adding resistance. And you had to keep your cadence up to a certain point, okay, while you're driving your heart rate up, and he's measuring all the...
He wouldn't let you drop below a given cadence.
Right. If you did, you were done. So, and I asked him at the time, I said, so what's the record?
Of course.
I said, and he told me, he goes, and I said to him, all right, just so I know. I mean, I was kind of like just looking for that.
Give me a benchmark.
Yeah, give me a benchmark. Okay. And I don't remember if I went to it or got close. I know I got close to it, but it was really stressful. Okay. I mean, it was, you read all these books that say, some of the Matt Fitzgerald's books, which I highly recommend for all, and just look them up online. It's got some Iron War, the story of Dave Scott and Mark Allen and the draft is fascinating. They always say you've got another 10 or 20% that your body's holding back.
Yeah, press pause on those two guys. Talk about thinking about somebody every time you wake up in the morning, and one or the other throughout that entire span of Ironmans was wondering, okay, if I take the day off, is Dave Scott taking the day off? Is Mark Allen taking the day off? Talk about a competitor that'll keep you honest.
Yeah. I had a guy I was doing strength training with, and that was always the thing I said to him. He was like in his 70s. And I always said, Jack, what's your competition doing today? And he'd like pick up the weights. All right, let's go. Yeah. In other words, how are they training?
I got you off track there.
Yeah.
So back to VO2 max.
Yeah.
10%.
So we did it. I honestly, I think for me, I'll be honest, it was kind of a confidence booster to see we did it. And I had no idea. So where do you kind of rank in that? It is I've been to, these clinics. I'm trying to think of the guys that put them on, some of these coaches. And the one guy said, if we've got the VO2 graph, and people are born here and people are born here.
Right.
He said, if you want to be really great, you really want to be born on that high end. He goes, I'm not
Amen.
saying you can't be a great athlete.
Right.
Because we see people that aren't, but he said, really, if you got that, and he said, you can pull people off the street that aren't trained and do a VO2 test, and they're going to score high with no training. Now, with training, they're going to take it way up. But he truly said,
I have a girlfriend that started running, a friend of my wife's that started running marathons in her 40s.
Yeah.
And she was podium the Flying Pigs marathon, trained herself into all kinds of injuries right off the couch. And I was talking to her about it, said, you ever run before? No, blah, 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 got into a little bit of her backstory, and turned out her dad has a bunch of records that still stand at LaSalle. Right.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. It's like,
Might have been Purcell Marion, but you get the point.
Yeah. That one female cyclist, Evie Stevens, what her name was, that, she was riding around Central Park with group rides.
Was it Polly Newby Fraser was the same as an Ironman athlete? She kind of came off the couch after watching.
Yeah. And then they're just, it's a physical gift. I hate to, when people say, it's like talking about a great musician that, like Eric Clapton wasn't just born a great guitar player. Yeah. John Coltrane wasn't born a great sax player.
You hear stories, but what was it? Clapton, he would just hang out in a room and people would bring him his lunch under the door and he would just play for hours on end.
Yeah. Well, Coltrane disappeared for a year and came back a different musician. He went and figured it out. He just devoted, so yeah. I mean, there's kind of that, myth out there that people they're gifted. It just happened. They just got on the bike and they were fast. Probably not. Now they might get on the bike, Davis Finney's your dad, Connie Carpenter's your mom. You're probably, I would be a cyclist also.
Right. Odds are.
Yeah. Odds are you're on the right. Yeah. And once again, I think they always said it was like necessary but not completely sufficient component to be a great athlete. In other words, you need to train it. And people, it's kind of like the car analogy. You could have somebody driving a regular Chevy and somebody driving, a Ferrari. If the person in the Ferrari doesn't know how to drive the car, the
Camaro is going to win.
Yeah. If you got a great driver with a lower machine, or VO2, they can still win. They'd be even better with the higher VO2.
Now, that's a pretty static number, though, isn't it? I mean, VO2, you're given a VO2 number. You can train it up within a certain.
You can train it up, yeah. And as you get older, it's going to start coming down. I mean, it's just your natural, whatever, your body's ability to move oxygen over time. You're just getting older is the problem, and things start to fall apart.
Yeah, it don't work as well. Do you think for the folks that don't want to sit there and get all claustrophobic that the VO2 max numbers that Garmin generates and some of these other databases, I'm thinking of Garmin in particular, are they reliable? Kind of error rate, I guess, is what I throw on.
Yeah, I think the training peak number is pretty darn close. I mean, knowing mine and knowing what it's showing me, I would say it's within a couple percentage points.
So less than 5%.
Oh yeah.
So that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Once again, is that a number you need to know? No. Is it kind of fun to know it? Yeah. It can also be kind of discouraging. I mean, truly.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And all of a sudden you come back and you're like, really, that's it?
That's all I got.
Yeah.
Am I short a cylinder?
Yeah. It's got to be wrong. Let's do this again. Your data's wrong there. Something's wrong with that machine. Yeah. Reboot it.
I used to have a Polar watch that had the thing you had to calibrate on your running shoe. Because it did. That was pre-GPS. I'm going back a few years, and I can remember training for a marathon. Going, it's got to be calibrated wrong. It's just got to be.
Something's wrong with this thing. Yeah, it can't be right.
Right. Or the marking on the bike trail, like that can't be a mile. That's wrong.
That's wrong. Well, I'll tell you, another eye opener for people is, Don Weatherwax, nutritionist. You go and you do the bod pod.
That's a wake up call.
Yeah. You really can't do it yourself. There's some great scales out there. It doesn't have to be the pod.
Yeah.
There's some of these scales now that you stand on and grab the handles.
Yeah.
They're $10,000 scale. I mean, it gives you arm by arm, and she's doing that now too. But truly, I mean, I've sent more people out to her that came back way discouraged. Like, but I look at it like, hey, at least you know now that you don't have to train. You just keep up the training.
Just lose the weight.
Lose 15 pounds. I mean,
Yeah.
you just bought speed right there. And I think cyclists need to understand that the sport itself is it's great training, great way to stay in shape, but it's not necessarily going to make you lean everywhere.
Right.
And once again, none of us are pros. We don't need to, let everything on our upper body just, deteriorate.
Wither away.
Yeah. And, you heard these stories about some of these guys in the tour that they got so thin, you could see their organs through their skin and stuff. I mean, I don't need to be there.
Yeah, for sure.
Truly, I got a good day. I'll go have a piece of cheesecake or something.
Well, think about those guys. Think about those guys walking that razor's edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're on. A razor edge.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've got a team of people to help them do that.
Yeah. Let's talk about the weight side of this sport. Okay. So, and this takes us back to FTP, because the fastest way to increase your FTP, at least from a ratio perspective, is to drop the pounds. All right.
Right.
So, you're also a personal trainer. So you get guys and gals in the weight room, endurance athletes and otherwise, working with you. So like just because it's a point of contact, I'll use not my numbers, but I'll use my experience with it. So, as a college athlete playing soccer, it was you had to have weight on your frame, right, to compete. Okay. So I was somewhere like 182 in college, and my body fat was half of what Don Weatherwax calculated it when I had it done the last time. And I weighed almost 30 pounds less, 20 pounds less. Went from 182 to 155, 157.
Yeah.
7% body fat to 14-ish or something like that, which isn't bad for some middle-aged athlete. But the point is, you lose 5 of those pounds, go down to 150, and all of a sudden your FTP goes,
sure,
it pops.
It's
big time.
Yeah. Free. Yeah.
So thinking about it from a coach's perspective, and cyclists in particular now, when we do our weight training, are we hitting our legs real hard? Or are we hitting our legs in such a way that we're not just making sure, but getting lateral movement in, making sure we're not just always spinning circles? Is there a benefit to doing real heavy squats, leg presses, that sort of thing? What does the leg side of things, or the bottom half, look like versus the top half for cyclists?
Right. Yeah, good questions. I really don't do any big weight, leg presses, anything like that. Never really have, but I'm doing a lot of strength training. So mine's all free weights.
Yep.
So my overall theory on the weights, I'm working every muscle group. Okay. Year round.
Yeah, I know you are.
Yeah. No sense in just doing it.
So somebody on this call is not listening to that advice, but
okay.
It has been heard.
Yeah. So, no sense lifting just in the winter.
Yeah, no.
And then giving it up, because you lose all the benefits
I know.
in a few weeks. So I will lift on the same days I do intervals, and I've been doing it for so long. It doesn't matter if I lift first, do intervals.
Yeah, there's adaptation there.
Yeah. I just one may suffer because of the other a little bit. Okay. And that's fine. So I'm lifting at least 2 days a week. I'm doing everything: upper body, core. I've got a chin up dip bar in my backyard now. I'm out there 5 o'clock in the morning doing my chin ups and pull ups and dips.
Well, and let's dwell on that for just a second.
Yeah.
So not being a coach, but just being around a gym, when I think of cyclists in particular, I think of and their need for weight training. I think that the closest analog is like a rock climber, right? Because they want to be super strong. In some ways, their strength is from the waist up, where ours is from the waist down.
They want no legs. Yeah,
right. But they don't want to put the weight on at the same time. Is that a fair analogy as far as the type of athlete or type of approach to
Yeah,
weight training?
yeah. Um, I don't worry about the muscle weight. In other words, if I can get as lean as possible, and maybe, I mean, I lift a lot,
I know you do.
okay, and I've never really bulked up. Okay, a lot of the people you see really bulking up or adding other stuff to their training.
Hmm.
You see these, really ripped guys. I mean,
Yeah.
they're whatever supplements and whatever to get there. Um, so I'm working every muscle group. I'm using free weights. Um, so my leg exercises, as opposed to uh, you know uh, doing a leg press with massive amounts of weights, which you can do, and you think about that, that really has very little to do with anything you're going to run into in cycling. Maybe parts of a sprint.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Right.
and if I was a track rider, I'd probably be in the gym a lot, because you need,
Yep.
boom. You already
It,
heard stories about Marty Nostine going from 0 to 3,000 watts.
yeah. Yeah. If you're above 1,500 watts on anything you do, then yeah, maybe add some leg presses and squats to your routine.
Right,
But
right,
if you can't
right,
get north of 1,500, there aren't too many. There isn't a big benefit other than
right.
trying to impress the chicks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we're beyond that.
So, yeah, yeah, way beyond.
Way
Yeah.
beyond.
I'm not impressing anybody at this point.
Right.
Um,
Except
yeah,
ourselves.
yeah, it's more, yeah, who am I depressing? But,
Right.
so what I'm trying to do in my weight training, okay, is first of all, correct all the imbalances that cycling brings on, because we are on our bike so long. We got this melon that we're holding, like, here for hours, straining our back, rounding our shoulders
Right.
off,
Big time.
taking the curve out of our lower back in a
Yep.
very way. So I want my strength training to correct all that, because my life is more than cycling. I'm down here hiking, I'm working in my
Playing the
yard.
piano, playing the
Yeah, you guys
drums.
sit on the drum throne for hours. I'm up digging trails at all park and stuff, whatever. But I want to do all that,
Yeah.
and I don't worry about a few pounds that may come onto the bike. And I think people that do, my argument right there would be, well, go have your body fat,
Oh, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
and then, if you're in that, and I send, like I said, people out there coming back 20% and don't worry about lifting. Actually, and if you lift and develop, muscles burn 24/7.
Yeah, they do.
I mean,
Yeah.
I used to wear one of these body media things that was way before Fitbits. I mean, this thing, you wore it on your shoulder, and it tracked your sleep and all, and how many calories you're burning all night. And yeah, if you got more muscle mass, you're just burning while you sleep. So so what I'm doing with my legs, and once again, because cycling, works in the kind of, our legs are working in this limited range of motion. I want to train beyond that.
Right. Get outside those little circles we made.
Yeah. So if you're a baseball pitcher and you're kind of throwing from here through, I worked with a guy who was like a strength coach with the Milwaukee Brewers. So they were training these guys way beyond.
Yeah, I could see that.
Motion.
Yeah, especially pitchers.
Yeah. So we're doing super deep lunges. We're doing super deep squats. You can sling a few 30 pounders, 40 pounders, or whatever up on your shoulders and start doing squats and lunges. It is going to wear you out. And deep.
I've done some of your online classes. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You get your heart rate popped pretty quick.
Yeah. And plyometrics. Plyometrics, I think, are maybe more valuable than just pushing the big weight in the gym. Any kind of jump. We're doing those lunge jumps. We're doing squat jumps with and without weights. We're doing, ski jumps side to side, speed skater, single leg side to side.
Yeah.
Anything like that, I think, because, we're pedaling one side at a time. Can you do a single leg squat? We're truly
tipping over.
Yeah. Flip your one foot back behind you and hold it with the opposite hand. And we do this in class, and go down. Can you get that knee all the way down to the ground and come up? Is it really valuable to cycling? But well, it's valuable for life. And it says to me, you probably got pretty good strength in that leg.
Yeah.
And the balance it takes and the force, that your body's working against you to stay upright, and you can maintain that up and down. You probably have pretty good force onto the pedals too.
Yeah.
So, and we train out of the range of motion of cycling, which is, very sagittal, right, left. So we do things backwards, forwards, side to angles, Once again, that's more for life stuff. When I'm down here hiking, um, you know, I'm by myself usually. I'm tripping on stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
I want a fighting chance out there. You know?
Sometimes we have a little bit more than a fighting chance,
Yeah,
but
I got my Garmin Mini inReach, like
oh,
basically, my wife put a hook through my shoulder, so it's right there.
yeah.
But yeah, I can always call. But yeah. So,
Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of the mental side of the sport. We danced around it, and not danced around it. It came up, but we didn't dwell on it very long.
I am going to get my charger.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, go ahead and ask.
All right. So the question, or at least the way I would pose it, is we've got the mental side of the sport, and I'm thinking about like your type A Iron Man or Iron Woman personality profile, or your hardcore roadie. And these type A people probably take their type A-ness right into work. So they're type A all the time, 24/7. What are your thoughts on kind of balancing overall energy and motivation? Because I'll just use myself as an example. You can come off a hard day in the office, and you may be sitting at your desk all day long, but you're drained before that FTP test comes up on a Thursday afternoon. And it's like, oh gosh, how do I dig deep? I've already dug deep for the last 12 hours in the office. How do I find that energy? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. For me, I've used days like that to actually put in great efforts. I think part of it is maybe I'm saying to myself, it was a lousy day, and it did drain me, but this is something I'm going to do for me when I get home.
My time.
Yeah. This is kind of my time. This is what I do for fun. That's work, but this is living.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of need to even say, how can I take a few minutes to decompress from that, and kind of get away from that cycle. Personally, I would, I'd avoid the internet.
Yeah.
And truly go to, the drive home, I'll start flipping on some music I know I like or something, and really just try and get away from that. I'll admit I've showed up. Obviously all the times I've done cleaves, you're not always fired up to be there, and there's something on your mind. Right. I usually find once I get there, whatever was, and even for training, whatever was bothering me, once I get out on the bike, I usually forget about it.
Yeah.
For me, that works.
And I think about, not that I'm the coach on this interview, but like you look forward to the end of the effort, knowing that there'll be an endorphin rush that you've earned.
Right.
You say to yourself, okay, there's still a transition. I still have to dig deep. Don't let them get you down. Look forward to what, the reward at the end of this is going to be a good, solid endorphin rush.
And truly, how many times have you ended a really hard bike workout and felt bad about yourself?
Not too many. Yeah.
Usually you're coming off of it and you think, even if you didn't hit all the numbers, you're like, I gave it everything I had, and that feels good. Now, and it's true, and I've had this too. You're just having a day that ain't working.
Amen.
And I will bag those intervals.
Yeah.
And just say, as and my coach always tells me the schedule's fluid. If it's Wednesday intervals and your day was just
one a day.
Yeah. And maybe you didn't have time. You're rushing home and it's like, I got this and I could squeeze it in, but barely. Just push it off.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's saying to you too that the off day is probably the best thing you could do.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for type A folks to reward themselves with an off day. It's you got to force yourself to take it.
Yeah, what's an off day look like in our life? I'm not sitting on the couch.
Right.
I'm a true off day. I'm probably still out walking 3 to 4 miles with the dogs. No, it's not,
it's not a workout.
Yeah. But it's active.
You don't retire back to Wimberg de Casa and have a massage and lay on the bed until the next workout rolls around.
I'm not a big, as you probably know, a sit down, watch TV even kind of guy. I mean, I will, but to me, that is like the end of the day activity.
The
I mean,
very
like
last
8:30,
hour of the day.
yeah, 8:30, 9 o'clock, I will finally sit down. And
Yeah.
if I can find a spot, I move the dogs, or sometimes I just sit on the floor.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, and for me, like I like to ride when I first get up in the morning. I get up early, I go through my emails and read the newspaper, ride my bike in the basement almost every day.
Yeah.
It's an easy ride. It's always the super easy 10 mile, low power. I wouldn't want to do intervals then. I've had some days where I had to get up and do them then, and I'm not ready.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I cannot do morning intervals unless
Yeah,
it's race day.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to do them late at night either, because then you
You're
want
spent.
to sleep. Yeah. So there's kind of that. There's a lot of other hours in the day, but there's certain times if that's the only time I have, I'd rather push them off.
Yeah, that's why I relish self-employment. I can just pick 2 o'clock because that's kind of the perfect
Exactly.
time. I've gotten 7 or 8 hours in the office, and then I can hammer out the workout before traffic hits the road, and then I'm home for dinner, and then I work some more, and it just, not everybody has the blessing of self-employment, or the curse, depending on your perspective.
But, we all do have just stuff that comes up.
Yeah.
Or days that we just think, and I would say to the people out there, if you have those bad days, give it a shot if you have the time, and see how it goes. If 10 minutes in, you're still just feeling like this is not going to work, just bag it.
Yeah. Pull the ejector, hit the ejector seat. The other thing I'll do, and I'm not the coach in this interview, but sometimes I'll give myself training anxiety. If I take a day off, then I've got to work even that much harder the next day. And then if the next day it doesn't build up, then you create this anticipation, and it's a weird mental what's the word, gerbil wheel we get ourselves on. That, like, I'll find that kind of sweet spot where if I know the workout's not coming together, shut it down early.
Right.
If I can get it close to where it needs to be, just plow through it and do the best you can that day, and be satisfied with that day's results, even if they're not PRs or where you want to be. You got the workout done.
There's times too when my coach will give me efforts and I see the power's not working. I will not look at it, and I'll just figure I'm going by perceived effort for this one.
I do that. Yeah.
And that's fine. I just figure whatever, there's, who knows, mental block, physical block, but I had the time and I don't feel bad. I'm just not firing everything like I'd like it to be. So I go through it. And once again, it's one day out of many. I think, once endurance athletes, more is always better, right?
Yeah.
That's what we think. If I did 200 miles last week, well, man, 250 is going to be way better this week. At least until I drive myself into the ground.
Right.
Yeah. I always tell the story. A guy years ago hired me to coach him, and I said to this guy, he was from out of the state, but he had been at Cleves before, and I said, "So tell me what's your schedule like?" He goes, "Well, I do intervals pretty much, every day." I said, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Really every?" He goes, "Yeah, every day." He goes, "I ride hard every day." And I said, "Well, that's because he hired me because he wasn't getting any better." I said, "Well, that's fine." I mean, truly, I said, "You need to take some
points."
Yeah. And it was kind of that, he pushed himself to just such a point that there was nothing.
There wasn't even a diminishing rate of return. There's no return.
Yeah. It was just like this continual, like, downward spiral. And he had that really bad feeling that if he took a day off, it would just get worse. Right. So keep plowing ahead. I will keep plowing ahead till I do get better. And I think that's one thing. I like to think I'm smarter now than I was. I take plenty of days off, and I like them. I mean, it's really just a chill day. Like I said, walking the dog, working in the garden. I may go up to Alt Park, walk the trails, cut some branches or something, but it's not an aerobic workout. It's not on the bike.
Yeah. There's still movement involved. It's not a static day.
Yeah.
I think about rest days in terms of repair too.
If you look at it like that, that's where the benefit happens. if you never take it, you never get it. So
Right.
yeah. I mean, really look at it as like, this is the day I'm getting stronger.
All right. Let me land the plane here with
Yeah.
with this question.
Okay.
So we're all coming off a year of COVID,
Yep.
no racing for a year. And now we're all heading back into race season. And I'm actually finding out, because I'm one of these guys that registers like 72 hours before a race, because that's all my life permits.
Yeah.
I usually like asking for permission, even at this stage of my life, like 3 days before a race instead of 3 weeks. And they're getting booked up. I mean, races are booking up. I'm excited to see that people are coming back to racing. What are your thoughts coming off a year of COVID, going into the racing season?
I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I had a few last year,
Right.
that I had to go out of town for, basically. I'm kind of interested to see, did we lose people over it?
Mm-hmm.
People who just said, I didn't race. I kind of got away from it, and I kind of like how that feels. I think there will be some of that.
I think you're right. Like that.
Yeah,
I don't want to be in pain, and there's an absence of pain.
Yeah, I think
hurts.
Sadly, I think they're, and it's probably good for those people that they did look at it and say, kind of like my life, with just training for fun, or just, and I think you'll see some of that. Then again, I think there's going to be people who come roaring back, and I think that's probably going to be the majority. I actually think it's going to pick up where we left off.
Yeah. You think folks, excluding you from the analysis, do you think that maybe there's going to be a dip in the front end of the racing season as far as performance goes, because we haven't had race hours in our legs, and don't be discouraged by that? Or do you think it's just going to pick up like a normal, after a winter season, you blow out the cobwebs and off to the races?
I think it'll come back just like it was. Yeah, I really do. Yeah. Judging by the first blue streak.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a pretty fast night anyway. It was cold, but windy. People were flying. I mean, and it was right back where you kind of thought it would be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the people who really missed it last year, I think they kept training.
Yeah.
I think they know it's coming back, obviously, and I think they're training just as hard as they ever did. I do. I think we'll just fall right back into it. I really do. Other than, and I think a lot of these, I'm thinking all park in my head as we're talking about this, the crit season, and maybe, I mean, I don't know this, and these guys who do that may debate this, is there going to be kind of we haven't ridden this fast in that kind of a size group in a while, although they did Lawrenceburg last year and there were excuses. So I really think it's just I think it'll be fine. I think people are going to jump right back into it and love it. And maybe there's even a greater appreciation for it.
I hope so. I hope so.
That year. Yeah. Yeah.
Like when I look at kind of the social side, the Strava, not social side, but look at Strava and look at my peer group, and things didn't stay the same for a lot of people. It either went up or it went down. There wasn't a stay the course kind of numbers. And it was a year of experimentation. That's how I looked at it. It was like, well, I lost a year. I'm going to play around with my training because there's no consequences to screwing it up.
Right.
Right.
But I think what happened too was, if you like, I hopped in the Strava, one for that Sunflower Rev event that they did last year, but it was kind of virtual, but they added in the hill climb in DeVoe Park, which then got me into, okay, I did Strava, and then I get into Ruby.
Yeah. What did your appetite? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And people did Zwift,
Zwift.
I actually, I think some of the highly competitive people, they found plenty of outlets.
Yeah, for sure. They found it on Zwift. I can tell you that.
They did. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I follow just some of the local Cat 1-2 guys, they're on Facebook, and I see what they're talking about, and they were going at it. I mean, and that was, I think that, took the place of a lot of the, real races locally that we couldn't have. But I think people found outlets.
Yeah.
Now, I know from my standpoint, I would come home like over the winter, look at my training, and find a Ruby race that matched what we were supposed to do. If my coach said to me, well, let's do 30 minutes of this or 220s of this, I would just find a race that I thought was going to last that long. You know,
Yeah, jump
the
into it.
motivation. And
Right.
once again, it was kind of cool because I'm like, once again, I don't know any of these people.
Yeah.
No, I'm just okay.
Some
You're
guy from
fine.
Ireland is
Yeah,
nipping
yeah,
at your
yeah.
heels. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm riding like in Taiwan, you know,
Right.
I'm riding like Germany. And it was, like I said, as much as I did that though, like last year, right at this time, I was getting into Strava. The national park was closed down here, but I was still coming down. I was riding outside the park and I had Strava. So I started looking around. I thought, shoot, I'll do this 3 mile course. So this 6 mile. And it kind of filled in that void in my life. So yeah, I think it's gonna come right back. Yeah.
Strava saved the world.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah.
Strava and Zwift are virtual saviors.
Yeah.
And Ruby.
Yeah.
Well, let's land the plane on that thought. And I do appreciate your time, Pete. And if people want to track you down for your coaching services, where would they find you?
You can just Google my name, Peter Wimberg, or you can go to Wimberg Bike Coaching. If you put that in, that should pull up my website also. And you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn. Yeah.
You're all over the place.
I'm out there. Yeah. Instagram.
Well, I
don't tweet.
You don't tweet.
I don't tweet. Yeah.
Well, that really is just a megaphone for very unhappy people.
Yeah.
On both sides of
Yeah.
the political landscape. I can see why you wouldn't get in there. There's not a lot of tweet-like discussions of TT issues or bike racing or training issues. So there's not a good outlet for you. Well, I can endorse you as a coach and recommend that anybody that's thinking about getting better as an endurance athlete, especially from a master's perspective or a middle-aged perspective, give Pete a look.
All right. I appreciate that.
All right. Take care and thank you.
All right.
Signing off.